So thank you all for joining. I know that we have tons of calls today. It's Monday, right? It's office day Monday. So these webinars is going to be 3 modules that we have. So we have another one next Monday, and then I believe it's 2 Mondays from now, just because of the holidays. But this is part of our full winter pillar goal to make sure that our campuses, LEDs know how to use reports to their advantage to create better, more efficient, more resident-related calendars. So what some of the feedback that we got as we were working on a plan to educate our LEDs is that sometimes us in the LES team also need some more training on this, how to use those reports, how to help our LEDs on utilizing some of these amazing tools that LifeLoop has. So that's why we're going to do these webinars with our team first, and then we're going to do them with the field. So by, I think, believe it's January 6th, our team will be trained on this, and then in January, we're going to train the LEDs, basically the exact same webinar. And then on Q1, our Q1 LES or divisional meetings with your LEDs, you guys will also do some extra training, troubleshooting, make sure that they understand the content correctly. So this is just for the LES team. Like I said, I'll record it and then we'll send it. But if you have any questions or anything, we'll have time at the end, hopefully, to go over that. So we ready to start? Woohoo! Show me the excitement. Da 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 da. Whoop whoop whoop. All right, here we go. All right, so today we're going to talk about how, and you guys can see my screen, right? Yes. How we are turning this vision into action through purposeful standards for healthcare NAL. So on Thursday, I sent over a recording, kind of like a summarized recording of what I presented to the LEDs at Hardwire Synergy. Hopefully you had some chance of viewing that video. If you didn't, don't worry. You know, that was just kind of the seed that we planted with your LEDs that leads to these webinars that we're going to be doing with you and the LEDs at the field. Now, I just want to start by saying a lot of the information that I will be talking about, I know that you guys know it front to back, right? And front and back to front. Like it's some of these things as standards, things that you know, but I wanted to show you what your LEDs will also be trained on, and the education that they will get, just in case you're like, that doesn't make sense, or that's not how we've normally done it. This is kind of the way that we want to do it moving forward at every campus. So if there's questions about that or things that we need to tweak or whatever, please let us know. So today's content, for example, a lot of the things you're going to be like, well, we know the standards, Daniela. I know, but this is what the field is also going to hear. So we just want to make sure that we're all on the same place. So please don't feel like I'm saying all this stuff because I don't think that you guys know the content. I know you do, but I just want you to see what the field will see when we do the webinars. So our standards are not just rules, they're the foundation for creating purposeful, fulfilling experiences that drive resident well-being. And we know that high engagement reduces depression and boredom while improving cognition and quality of life. And that's exactly what we want for our residents, right? Quality of life, well-being, where they feel like they have a voice or they have purpose. So during today's webinar, we're going to talk about measurable improvement in residents' happiness and wellness, and how to have greater participation and satisfaction across all service levels, which is, in our case, not right now, is healthcare and assisted living. So today we're going to talk about, again, how we go from the vision, right, that we've talked about at Hardwire Synergy, and how this translates to the standards that we have in place. So at Hardwire Synergy, we talked about purpose-driven programs, data-informed decisions, and measurable outcomes. So we are operationalizing, I'll work on that word, this vision through clear, actionable standards. So why do standards matter? Why do we have standards? So the reason why we have standards is to ensure that we're not just completing activities, right? Again, we want to make sure that our residents have meaningful engagement that is aligned to their interests. As we keep talking, we don't want to just have activities to fill the calendar, to, fill the time, but we want to make sure that we have activities that are meaningful and purposeful to our residents. So some of the benefits that we have by following our standards is that provides a clear structure to improving staff efficiency. It increases resident participation with balanced, well-planned activities, builds family trust and satisfaction with thoughtful programming, ensures alignment with health and wellness goals, and creates consistent, purposeful programming. So who can tell me, you can come on mute or put in the chat, what happens if we don't follow our standards? What's the risk of not following the standards? You can unmute, write it in the chat.
Bingo, all day, every day.
Yes, bingo, all day, every day. And listen, some people love bingo, right? But is that giving you a lot of a lot of other things, right? What bucket is bingo filling? Maybe social bucket, but
Filling the budget bucket.
The budget bucket, yes. What other risks do we run by not following our standards? Mandy, what do you think? What risk do we run?
You run the risk of not all of the residents' needs getting met.
Yes, yeah. So not having that resident or person-centered approach. See, Vanessa, you're typing something. Lena, what do you think? What other risks do we run?
Poor customer service.
Yeah. Our CSS scores will be low from a resident perspective, from a family perspective. Vanessa said quality is compromised. Yes, and lack of variety. Yeah, if we have bingo all day long, is that a quality calendar? Nope. All right, so some of the risks that we have, like you guys said, missed opportunities, right, for meaningful engagement. The residents don't have the engagement that they need. It's not personalized, limited variety, leading to reduced participation and engagement, neglects key areas of wellness, right, like physical, cognitive. If we just do bingo all day long, what areas of wellness are we hitting? Probably not all of them. Increased loneliness or isolation due to lack of socialization opportunities, and inaccurate data reporting impacting improvement efforts and risk of state citation. So our standards, what they should look like is activities occurring 7 days a week, including 2 evening activities per week minimum. I understand that a lot of campuses, we do have gathering of friends as well, but our standard is 2 evening activities a week. And these activities should be purposeful and engaging programs, not just put on a movie and sit the residents in front of the TV, right? These should be activities that actually are engaging our residents, where they find joy, they have experiences. So we want to make sure that we're providing those. They can be resident-led, they can be volunteer-led, and of course, they could be staff-led. So if you have residents that find purpose and joy into leading a program, into teaching somebody how to paint, that could be a great evening activity that staff does not have to stay, that we don't have to staff for that. Also, on Sundays, we should have alternatives beyond worship services. And like I have there on the bottom, our weekend programming and staffing should mirror weekday offerings. So we should not see a difference between a Sunday schedule or calendar with a Wednesday staffing schedule or calendar. It should be all the same. And we should be offering 2 trips a week with one off the bus trip as well. So what barriers do you guys think our campuses are facing in the weekend programming.
Staffing, I think that weekend priority is at least for me in my division, a huge opportunity. I find that they're staffing one person on the weekend a lot of times to make up for the hours during the week because of the outings and all these other events during the week. And that weekend is a huge opportunity for North Ohio
Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot that,
staffing.
same that work every third weekend. I'm finding and having to have them change that to every other weekend and having 2 people every weekend instead of just one and working every third or fourth weekend. So
Okay. Any other barriers you guys see? And I agree. I think staffing is the main thing, right? We always, I think, see weekends as maybe less staffed because, like Lena said, we are trying to do all these other things during the week. So probably changing the mindset that every day is the same and we should be having the same offerings. That's probably something that we need to work on. So the good news is that our standards already help us provide this holistic engagement for our residents. And like I said, I know you guys know the standards, so I'm not going to read all the standards and how many times a week we have to do each standard, but here's the list for our healthcare NAL calendar, what each standard is, kind of an example, and how many times a week those standards should show up. Each category supports different aspects of wellness, from physical vitality to emotional connections. So we want to make sure that our calendars follow our standards. But again, the idea with this is that if we follow these standards and have all these activities on our calendar, we are meeting that person-centered well-being for our residents. Now, a best practice for these standards to make sure that our LEAs are prepared for the day is to attach the program descriptions to each activity, just like we do with daily rhythms, where we upload the daily rhythm program description, the instructions, and what they have to do. It's also best practice for our LEDs to do the same thing at the campus level. So that way that LEA doesn't have to, get on their phone and try to find that 50s trivia. It's already in Life Loop. All you have to do is just click on the activity and the instructions will show up on there. So when residents see their preferences reflected, they feel valued and empowered. And this is how we make sure that our standards that we just talked about align with the residents' preferences as well. So standards provide the structure, but personalization makes them meaningful to our residents. So some strategies for personalizing the calendar by following our standards is conducting resident assessments, which we all do. We do it upon admission, we do it quarterly, we do it annually. So gathering all the feedback, all the information the residents are giving us, and make sure that we're plugging in those nuggets, that information that they're giving us into the calendar. Engaging our residents in resident committees. We've talked about this. We have a lot of guides out there talking about resident committees. Could we have a calendar making resident committee? Could we have an outing resident committee? Could we have, a creative cooking resident committee where the residents come together and put together the calendar, put together the programs that they want to see available to them? And regularly review and participation data to refine activities. And that's why we have Natalia here today. She's going to show us how to start this process, because I know it can be a little bit scary that when we talk about data and reports and things like that. And then building flexibility into the calendar to accommodate unique preferences. We all know that sometimes we make the best calendar. We're so proud of it. And the day comes, we have the best activity program created and the residents are like, no, we don't feel like it today. Or yeah, that sounds great, but that's not what we want. So making sure that we are able to be flexible with our residents. Now, we talked about standards and why standards are important, how our standards meet our residents' well-being. But the second piece of this is important, that we are categorizing our activities correctly, right? So we talked about vitality, keeping it sharp, but a lot of the times what we see is that we are miscategorizing activities, and so that presents some issues as well, some challenges as well. So it's important that we all agree that, for example, trivia is keeping it sharp, or bingo is not keeping it sharp. It's not lifelong learning, but it's group games or it's other, right? So we just need to make sure that we're all categorizing our activities correctly. The reason for this is because it ensures a well-balanced calendar with proper representation of all categories. So if I categorize bingo as vitality and trivia as vitality and Tai Chi as vitality, of course I'm going to meet my 5 vitality a weeks, but that doesn't mean that those are truly exercise or physical activities for my residents. It also facilitates efficient audits by quickly confirming standards are met. So again, if I know that I'm categorizing things correctly, I can just check, yes, I have my 5 vitalities, we're good to go. It protects the integrity of the data and reports, avoiding misleading trends. And it guides programming improvements by providing accurate insights into resident engagements. So a few tips for success on here is double check each activity purpose when assigning categories. So again, going back to Hardwire Synergy, we had that care handouts for you guys. I did add it on that email with a recording so you can see. In asking yourself, anytime you put an activity on the calendar, what is the purpose of this activity? If the purpose is not exercise or movement or physical well-being, then it probably is not a vitality. It probably is some other category. Use tools like the monthly activity planner to ensure consistency and include a secondary review during audits to catch potential errors. So some of the tools that we have available is our calendar accountability tool, which is that top right image that I have there on the screen, and the monthly program planner. I think a lot of campuses are more familiar with that second tool on the left side there, but these are available on Compass. If you just type those titles, they'll pop up. And then also our Life Enrichment TSS, our Trilogy Service Standards. The guide is also available in Compass. We have page 34 to 40 on that. So these are tools that you can use to make sure that we are meeting our standards correctly. So what we're going to do next is we're going to give the floor to LifeLoop, to Natalia. She's going to teach us how do we leverage the reports available in LifeLoop so we can move from guesswork to data-driven decisions that truly benefit our residents. So again, how do we look at these reports and make sure that we have all our standards met, so we're meeting the frequency of the standard, and also that we have the correct activity categorization.
All right, thanks, Daniela.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
did my screen share show up with LifeLoop?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to start with, just like Daniela mentioned, I'm going to show you a few things related to kind of what we talked about today and how it's possible to use LifeLoop as a tool to make sure that you're hitting all of your standards. So the first thing I wanted to mention is just on the calendar itself. One of the things that Daniela spoke about was the need to, or the best practice to include the different types of instructions or documentation attachments on your activities. So I'm going to show that, and I just have Stonegate pulled up as an example today on here. So I will just go ahead and show you how you can, either when you're creating a new activity or on an existing activity. I'm just going to edit this existing activity for the example. If you scroll down to the very bottom, this is where you have the option to browse files. So attach any files from your computer if you have those guidelines that you'd like to include, as well as select content. So for example, this activity is bingo. If you're going to be using the LifeLoop content bingo, you can actually just right here, click select content, and choose the bingo that you'd like to include. Then when whoever's running the activity is running it, it will just show there and they don't have to get it set up separately or try and find the right one. It's already attached to your specific activity. And this also, when you save it, it will basically ask you if you'd like it to be for the whole recurring pattern of the activity, if it is a recurring event, or just that one. So similarly to if you're just editing an activity in general, you have that capability. So that's a really great way that you can kind of incorporate and make sure that you're adding those things and making life simpler as well. With regard to keeping track of how are you holding up on your calendar against your standards, I want to show the option to filter. So I'm kind of in the top middle area here where it says filters. And you may notice now that there is an option of type. So for example, if you have, you can go through any of these different categories and see if you're meeting your standards. So let's see if we're doing out and about. Looks like this calendar doesn't have any out and about scheduled. So that's something for you to take a look at and say, oh, I'm missing that one. I need to make sure that I'm hitting that standard. Let's see, we can look at another one, artisans. We have two separate open art studio options. Are those specific enough? Do they need to be beyond just art studio, or they need to be other activities? That's kind of the things that you guys can start thinking about as you're building calendars and saying, okay, am I meeting these standards? It's very easy for you to just kind of quickly filter and find the different categories. So then now that I'm showed you what you can do just within the calendar itself, I do want to show a few things within the reporting tool itself. So I actually pulled up, so I went over to the reports tab, but I had it pulled up just so it's preloaded for you guys. But over on the left-hand side here, I chose a time range of the last 3 months. I clicked on activity for my report type. I chose a campus, and then I chose an activity type. So this is going to give me the last, and once I did that, I clicked apply filters, and this is what I got. So once I did that, it's going to give me the last 3 months worth of community connections activities for this campus. So this is really great where you can take a look at these and really monitor for the audit for quality, making sure that you have variety in the different events that you're hosting related to each type. And it's super easy over here. If I want to take a look at, let's do expressive arts and see if we've got anything there. All you have to do is change the activity type and click apply filters. It will take a minute just because of it's loading the data, so you just got to be a little patient with it if it's taking a little bit longer. But here you can see it's going to show me all of the expressive arts activities in the last 3 months. So not only is it going to show you, you can also do it for just the last or previous month or 6 months, whatever you'd like to for your time range. This is going to tell you a few things. One, again, you can audit for the types of activities that are being provided within this, as well as you can see on here if you are the number of activities again. So if you're meeting those standards by month over month. And then as an LES, you also don't forget you do have the option to filter by your region specifically, which is something that could be nice for any of these reports. You can always filter by your region and you could see things just in that way, as opposed to right now, I'm just looking at it one community at a time, like the LEDs would. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to show you all in the reports related to this, how to make, use this data to your advantage, is in the charts section. So in the charts section, you'll see you're going to choose your calendar specific over here on the top right. And then under activity types, this is going to give you your breakdown of activity types per month for that specific calendar. So if you hover over it, it's going to give you the numerical breakdown. So you can kind of compare month to month and see where your trends are. And again, if you have specific, I know you have specific standards that you have to meet for number of activities per month per type. This is a super easy way to just at a glance say, okay, do I have my 2 out and about events? Do I have my or whatever it may be, like 30 vitality events for the month, etc. So this is a super easy way to, at a high level glance, what's going on in a calendar by calendar basis. Any questions on those things? Of course, there are more, but we wanted to really just hone in on the things that Daniela talked about today, related to the programming and your standards. But Daniela, is there anything else you wanted me to show or any questions?
No, this is great. Like Natalia says, so each module that we're going to do, we're just going to show the reports for the specific topics that we're talking about, right? LifeLoop has a lot of other capabilities when it comes to report viewing and data analysis, but we just want to talk about those few things. So again, how do we make sure that a calendar is up to standard, right? As an LES team, when we go in, we want to make sure that all the standards are in place. This is how you do it. And then how do you make sure that the quality of the activities are there, the activities are categorized correctly. So this is how you would do that. And next week we'll talk about other ways of using the reports. But just a few things that Natalia showed, that content, how to attach the content from IN2L, that's fantastic. Same thing, right? If we're doing bingo, if they're doing a trivia that they found on IN2L, for the LED to just attach that so the LEA doesn't have to go hunting all over the place for any kind of program.
That's great for your weekend and evening programming. So if you're not going to be the one leading the activity, it's great if it's going to be something that involves people that, you know, you are not the one hosting the event. This way they just have it right in front of them. Yep.
So any questions on that?
I have a question. On the report before this one, before the charts, that showed the frequency of like the type of activity. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the best way to use this? Like, I don't see a date necessarily for each thing on the left, each named activity. And then could you talk a little bit about like the columns as well? I know we heard about this before, but I don't know how to use these numbers very well.
Yeah. So as far as the date, it's not going to give you a specific date of the activity, but it's going to get, you have the time range selected. So if I wanted to just look at, for example, November, I would just change this to be to the last month. And when I do that, you'll see it will shrink the list from things. But then
So is this in reverse order? Like the first creative projects is the beginning of November, or that's up till now and that's the end of November?
I don't, well, so this is now, I changed it to now this is just all of November, what I'm looking at right now.
So if we click the name of the activity, will that show us when it is? Just so we can, if we're looking at trends, like I want to know if they're improving. So if the top is what's today, you know, I can get a sense for the time.
So it does not have the exact time associated in this view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. But on here, and we're not getting into attendance specifically today, which is why I didn't talk about the data points that you can find over here. But essentially, these will kind of tell you how the activities are performing. Green means good, red means it's below average compared to the rest of your activities in attendance wise.
Yeah, so we don't want to overwhelm anybody with everything that they can do. So we just wanted to show those two things today. Just how do you check for calendar meeting standards and the quality of the programming. All right, I know we're at time. So any other questions on the reports?
So will there ever be a point where you can actually see who's charting? Because I know sometimes we want to hold people accountable to know who's charting or not charting correctly. Is it ever going to be a point where we can see who's actually doing the charting?
We can talk about that a little bit in the next module where we'll talk about assigning people to activities. So you know who's responsible for each activity and for charting. So, but right now that doesn't play into the reports section, but you are able to see, again, like on a filter in the calendar, like I showed in earlier for the types, you can see who's responsible for each activity if they're assigned appropriately.
But it won't show who charted though. Like we don't usually always know who specifically might be leading that activity to be able to assign a specific person. So if
If
you don't,
If that's the case, depending on permissions, whoever is charting could always edit the activity to assign it to themselves at the moment if you don't know ahead of time. Otherwise, one way or the other, it would have to be indicated somewhere in the system that it was assigned to a specific staff member in order to keep track of it.
But yeah, to answer the question, I know what you guys are asking. No, you
Yeah.
cannot see who charted.
yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let me share my screen one more time because I know I don't want to keep you guys over, which I'm already doing. So to kind of solidify what we just talked about, oh, I don't think you guys can see that. Hold on. Sorry about that. So what happens when you have too many screens? Okay, so just to solidify what we talked about, again, today was only just to check if the calendar is meeting standards and the quality of standards. That's it, right? We're not going to talk about participation or anything like that. Just kind of some homework for you all to put this data in use is for you guys to audit your lower 3 CSS campus calendars. Again, this is from a life enrichment perspective. What are those 3 lower CSS campus? Audit the calendar, just like you saw. Are they meeting standards with what Natalia showed you today? And what is the quality of the program, right? Are they using the right categories for each activity? So if they're putting bingo under vitality, then that's a no, right? And then provide the campus with action items to meet the calendar standards and improve program quality. So just as you're editing that, when it's just send them an email, you can CC myself and Kara on that so we can kind of see how that is working. And if you have questions as you're doing it, please reach out to myself, reach out to LifeLoop. We'll be happy to assist with that. Any last minute questions? I know we're over 3 minutes. All right. Well, thank you all for your time today. I'll send a wrap-up email with this and in the video as well. If you have questions, just let us know. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Daniela. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.